Okay, slugging percentage. It's like batting average, but gives a player more credit for an extra base hit, a double, a triple, or home run. A player has a high slugging percentage they hit for extra bases. That's good. Historically, the heavy hitting positions, excluding the designated hitter, are usually the first baseman, maybe an outfielder, and third baseman. Shortstops are not heavy hitters. They're usually pretty low on the list when it comes to slugging. So naturally, what I did was I converted slugging percentage into a different stat, which I call SLG+, or Slug Plus. It's dumb. It makes 100 average, and anything higher or lower is either better or worse. It's kind of like OPS+, ERA+, and WRC+, except I made it up and am using it. From 1973 until 2021, the slug plus of a third baseman would usually average 4% better than average slugging in this span. The shortstop position sits at 8% worse, so a 12% difference in getting extra base hits between the two positions. So, getting a shortstop third base pair to slug at the same time is usually pretty difficult or impossible. Xander Bogaerts and Rafael hit a ton of extra base hits as a shortstop third base pair in 2019, and here's why you should care about it. The benchmark that I'll be using is 45 extra base hits in a season. That's the minimum. From 1903, the earliest that could be managed, usually there were about 1 or 2 teams whose players accomplished this feat. There was a brief pop-up of these seasons in 1930 and 32, and again from 1935 until 1942. But generally, there just wasn't a need for both the third baseman and the shortstop to hit for extra bases at the same time. Usually the shortstop is more of a defense-first position, especially back then, and the third baseman was just the same thing except with a bit more offensive power. Some momentum for these kinds of seasons where both the third baseman and shortstop got 45 extra base hits in a season. It started about in the 1980s with the longest streak of these since the 1930s, lasting until 1992. After the strike-shortened 1994 season, the sluggers arrived. Shortstops as a whole started consistently hitting better and better per year, closing the gap of production over the next 27 years, with the first year of above-average slugging as a position happening in 2018, and that's been maintained for the last 3 seasons. The two positions actually finished the 2020 season with an identical slug plus rating, with a small divergence the following year. Well, what about Xander Bogaerts and Rafael? We're getting there, trust me. Here's a list of players with the most seasons of 45 or more extra base hits as shortstop or third baseman. They need a minimum of 7. If you take the top 49 players on this list and divide it by primary position, 33 out of the 49 are third basemen, or about 67%. And on this list you have some interesting players. The leader of this group, Adrian Beltre, who achieved this in 16 of his 21 years, followed closely by A-Rod with 15. You have some other Hall of Famers like Chipper Jones, Cal Ripken Jr., Mike Schmidt, Derek Jeter. The highest placed active player right now is Evan Longoria with 10 seasons to his ledger, with Nolan Arenado and Manny Machado being the only players right now to play enough seasons in the future to climb this list. Maybe Josh Donaldson if he gets scorching hot, but not really.
Where are Devers and Bogaerts?
We'll get to them. Point is, as I mentioned before, lining up both a shortstop and third baseman on the same team at the same time with the same kind of slugging capabilities is very, very difficult. Over the course of history with the American or National League, there have been 205 times where the shortstop-third base combo each had 45 or more extra base hits in a season. The only team in the American or National League which was unable to have one of these was the Los Angeles Angels. Sorry, guys. And the leader of this group, the Boston Red Sox, of whom our friends Devers and Bogaerts currently play. See, they're in. I mentioned them, but I will mention them again in the future. We've been narrowing down these lists farther and farther each time. We're almost at the big thing. So here are player tandems, so shortstop third base combos, that were able to have more than 3 seasons of 45 extra base hits each. The 2 highest pairings are A-Rod and Jeter and David Wright and Jose Reyes, with 5 seasons as a tandem. The pairings of Miguel Tejada and Eric Chavez, and Lou Boudreau and Ken Keltner are next with 4 seasons each. Then there's the rest, which includes Bogaerts and Devers on here, so they're already in some pretty esteemed and elite company. Now we arrive at the final series of numbers, a laundry list of every tandem whose sum total is 91 or higher. There are names that you expect that are high up on this list, such as Hanley Ramirez and Miguel Cabrera being here twice. Nomar Garcia-Parra is half of 3 separate tandems, obviously Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado being in cores, and the absolutely ridiculous year that Francisco Lindor and Jose Ramirez had in 2018. In 2019, Xander Bogaerts and Rafael Devers combined for 175 extra base hits, 12 more than the tie for second place. That's a ton, and, as you can see, no one comes close. The difference from first to second is about the same as the difference from second to 8. So the last thing, the progression of this arbitrary success. You notice how it inches along, the record usually only being increased by about 6 or 7 extra base hits at a time, being held from anywhere between 5 and 17 years. When Eddie Matthews and Johnny Logan inched it 2 more extra base hits higher, they held the record for 29 straight years. It would figure that the next 2 breaks would happen in spectacular fashion, with Robin Yount and Paul Molitor breaking the record by 8 in 1982, holding it for 16 years, for it then to be surpassed again by 8 with Nomar Garcia-Parra and John Valentin. But then the record continues its inching pattern with small lead changes and short increases. In 2018, the first pair of tandems, so the first group of 2 people on 2 different teams, broke the record. The pairings of Lindor and Ramirez and Story and Arenado both breaking the record by 6. And then Devers and Bogaerts set a new standard, breaking it by 12 the following season, the largest increase by far. Rafael Devers had 90 extra base hits, Xander Bogaerts had 85. That put them in a very interesting and really cool category as 2 of 18 shortstop or third basemen to have at least 85 extra base hits in a season. And you can tell what kind of company they're in. This is elite company. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Just to make it perfectly clear, Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts did something that has never, ever been done by 2 people who play that side of the infield. Will this be surpassed? I'm not sure. I mean, they still play, so they could probably pass it if they each have another good season together. And you also have pairings such as Fernando Tatis Jr. and Manny Machado who could easily top this if they stay healthy and have MVP seasons. Let's just give some love to these guys because they did something that was not as noticed as I think it should have been. And it's only something that could have been done with the power of teamwork. Thanks for watching.